It was an ordinary Tuesday, the kind of day where nothing remarkable should happen. Gray skies, leftover tie in the fridge, my inbox overflowing with work requests that blurred into one another. I was late coming home. Naomi hadn't texted. That wasn't new, but the moment I opened the door, something felt off. The apartment was too still. Not silent, but still, like the air was holding its breath. The overhead light in the hallway flickered once, casting a pale, trembling shadow across the hardwood, and then I smelled it. Not food, not candles. Something more intimate. Her perfume. I used to love that scent. Deep amber and vanilla layered with something floral and wild. It lingered on her neck, in our pillows, in the scarf she loaned me that winter in Prague. That perfume was more than a fragrance, it was memory. It was her history in a bottle. I followed the scent like a warning, slow, deliberate. And when I reached the bedroom, I saw it, shattered. The bottle I bought her in Paris. I remember the tiny shop in the airport. The way she'd laughed at me for spending too much on something so small. But when she wore it that night, she cried and said no one had ever made her feel so beautiful. I believed her, and now it lay in jagged pieces across the wood floor. Liquid gold bleeding across the grain like something sacred desecrated. Sat on the edge of the bed, cross-legged, staring at her phone. Her eyes flicked up at me. Calm. Too calm. Did you drop it? I asked, barely above a whisper. She tilted her head. It's just perfume. No, I said, louder now. That bottle meant something. She blinked slowly, then sighed. Not. Apologetic, exhausted. It's not about the perfume. I need to tell you something. That was when the room started spinning. Not dramatically, not the way movies show it. But like the air got thick, the walls pulled back, and I was watching myself from above. She patted the bed beside her. I didn't sit. I made a mistake, she said, just like that. 4 words that felt like a punch to the chest. I waited. I slept with someone, she added, as if clarifying a menu order. It was just once. Once, the word echoed in my head like a dropped coin. Once. Like that made it better. Like that diluted the poison. Who? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. She hesitated. Her eyes flickered. You don't know her. I did. I would. Naomi was a terrible liar. I took a step into the room. The broken glass crunched under my foot, and only then did I realize I wasn't wearing shoes. Tiny shards of our past, sharp and cold, pressing into my skin. She stood up, reaching toward me. It didn't mean anything. Her voice was almost gentle, like she was comforting me, like I had tripped and broken something we both needed. Stop, I said. My own voice sounded foreign. Hollow. She froze. How long? I asked. I told you. It was just a mistake one. Time. I didn't believe her. But more than that, I realized I didn't care if it was 1 time or 20. The number wasn't the betrayal. The lie was. The erasure of trust. The months I spent defending her to others, to myself. You lied to me every day you came home. And touched me, I said. My voice had sharpened without my permission. Naomi sat back down. Can we not do this now? The perfume seeped into the floorboards. The whole room reeked of it now, too strong, too sweet. I could taste it in the back of my throat. I looked around. Our photos still framed on the dresser. The matching robes we bought in Kyoto still hanging on the door. A drawer half open, filled with my folded t-shirts she always borrowed and never returned. And yet none of it felt like mine anymore. I'd been disappearing, hadn't I? Piece by piece. First it was my last name. I kept mine, but she stopped using it. Then my routines adjusted for her moods. Then my voice measured, softened, muted. Somewhere along the way, I had become background music in my own life. I stepped back. My heel dug into something sharp and I felt a sting. I didn't even flinch. "You're bleeding," she said. "Good," I replied. It came out colder than I expected. Naomi stood again, reaching out. "Please, I told you the truth. That has to count for something." I looked down at the blood pooling around a shard of glass near my heel. "It counts for something," I said. "It counts as the last thing I'll ever believe from you." She went quiet, and I knew then she didn't regret the betrayal. She regretted being caught. I turned, ignoring the pain in my foot, walked down the hallway barefoot, leaving prints of myself behind, red, raw, undeniable. My body registering the pain my heart hadn't yet allowed. At the doorway, I paused. "Gave you everything," I said without turning around. She didn't respond. "You said it was a mistake," I whispered. "But I'll show you what consequences look like." And then, quieter, still so soft only I could hear it, "You will regret this." Then I left, not because I knew what came next, but because whatever it was, it had to begin with not staying. Naomi came into my life like a dare. We met in Lisbon at a tech and design summit I almost didn't attend. I was the type to sit in the back, notebook open, pen hovering, always the observer. Naomi was the keynote speakers +1, lounging, barefoot on the patio with a glass of sangria and paint smudges on her fingers. She wasn't supposed to be there. She never was where she was supposed to be, and maybe that's what drew me in. She smiled at me like she already knew the ending. Said something about my quiet eyes and how I probably dreamed in code and structure. I thought she didn't, and still I fell. She was the kind of beautiful that doesn't apologize. Tall, freckled, unapologetically loud. The opposite of me, in every sense. Where I measured life in checkboxes and project timelines, she lived like everything was a poem waiting to be misread. I once told her I didn't believe in soulmates. She laughed and said, "That's because no one ever broke. You wide open." I didn't know then how prophetic that would be. Our love was quicksand. It didn't feel like falling. It felt like being pulled under, sweetly, warmly. By the time I realized I couldn't breathe, it was too late. She moved in with me. Months after we met, left half her belongings in a hotel and said, "I live with you now, okay?" It wasn't a question. I said yes. Because when Naomi asked for something, it felt like the world tilted until you gave it to her. When I got the job offer in New York, VP of engineering, my dream, she kissed me, handed me a coffee, and asked, "Do you really want to live somewhere?" That cold. By the end of the week, I declined the offer. 2 months later, I moved to her city. Naomi had no savings, no long-term plans, but she had vision. She had vision. I loaned her the money to start a boutique design studio. Just until clients picked up, she said, "It's not a loan," I told her. "It's an investment in us." She beamed like I'd handed her a galaxy. My mother warned me. She didn't like Naomi's mess. Her casual lies, the way she never answered a question directly. "She wears chaos like perfume," my mother said. "And you've always been drawn to the scent of fire." I hung up on her that day. That was the beginning of the distance. The first thread I cut, I wanted Naomi to be enough. I wanted us to be modern and fluid and free of all the old molds. But what I really wanted, what I was too proud to admit, was for someone to choose me completely. I mistook her unpredictability for freedom, her mood swings for passion, her silence for thoughtfulness. In truth, Naomi lived in a world where consequences didn't exist. She loved people the way children love paper boats, momentary, reckless, and without understanding what happens when they sink. There were signs. I see them clearly now. Nights when she wouldn't come home until 3 a.m., smelling of unfamiliar cologne and cheap wine. The stories she spun, just a client dinner, or we got stuck talking about branding, never quite added up. But I made excuses for her. Smart women are good at that. She had a friend named Delia, a photographer. Gorgeous, soft-voiced, always texting. I asked once, "Were you two ever?" Naomi laughed and said, "God, no. She's too clingy." I believed her. Then there was the night I overheard Naomi on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice hushed, intimate. "Of course I miss you." I told her I'm just tired. When she saw me, she smiled, kissed my cheek. That was my sister. She said Naomi didn't have a sister, but I let it go. Told myself I'd misheard. Because the alternative, that the person I had trusted with my most vulnerable self was lying, was too devastating to name. We signed a lease together. Split everything down the middle, though her half often came late. I picked up the slack. She bought wildflowers and tucked them into old wine bottles. Painted the walls strange shades that grew on me over time. Said our apartment should feel like a canvas. It did. Mostly because I was the one being painted over. I stopped seeing friends. They didn't get us. I skipped family holidays. Stopped correcting the lies Naomi told in public. Stopped asking questions I wasn't ready to hear the answers to. I traded pieces of myself for scraps of her attention. It felt noble than like devotion. Now, it feels like self-erasure. I remember one morning waking up before her. The light was soft and gold, filtering through the sheer curtains. She was sleeping on her stomach, one arm thrown over my waist. And I remember thinking, I don't recognize the person she sees when she looks at me. Because I had become whoever she needed, patient, pliable, forgettable. A mirror reflecting only her light. Back then, I called it love. Now, I call it disappearing. The hardest part isn't that she cheated. It's that I let myself vanish so slowly, so willingly, that by the time the truth broke through, I was unrecognizable. Even to myself. In loving her, I had abandoned myself, my voice, my ambition. My boundaries. Naomi didn't steal from me. I gave it all away. And that's what hurts the most. After the perfume bottle, Naomi cried real tears, I think. But tears are like perfume, easy to fake. And sometimes all for show. She played her part well. She made dinner the next night, truffle pasta, my favorite. She opened a bottle of wine. We'd been saving, the one we bought on that vineyard tour in Florence. She didn't drink any, just poured a single glass and set it at my place with a sprig of rosemary from the windowsill garden. She was trying to perform love, and I was trying to feel it. I ate. I even said thank you. I watched her face, trying to read sincerity in the tilt of her lips, the softness of her eyes. But it all felt like a monologue she had memorized. A woman playing a character she used to be. For a few days she was perfect. She texted more. She didn't vanish without explanation. She even joined me on the couch to watch an old thriller we used to love, though she spent most of it on her phone. But the intimacy was gone. Something invisible but essential had been severed. It was like walking through our apartment blindfold at everything familiar, yet nothing quite where it should be. I couldn't sleep beside her anymore. I'd lie there stiff, listening to her breathe, trying to remember how it used to feel to reach for her in the dark. I stopped doing that. Stopped reaching. I had forgiven her, or tried to, but something inside me had stopped blooming. And one Thursday, I came home early from a client pitch. Rain streaked the windows, soft and gray. Naomi wasn't home. Neither was her umbrella. I curled onto the couch with a cup of mint tea and the tablet we both used. I didn't mean to snoop. I was trying to order groceries. That's the part no one believes. The betrayal didn't come from hunting. It came from habit. The email app was still logged into her account. I saw the subject line, weekend retreat. Confirmation, cabin stay for 2. My chest tightened. I opened it. The cabin's name hit me like a punch. Wolf Pine Ridge. We'd been going there for years, our escape from the city. where we chopped firewood and played board games and once made love outside in the snow. That place held pieces of us I thought were sacred. The dates were next weekend. The second guest listed Delia, the same Delia who once spilled red wine on our rug and apologized by painting over it. The same Delia Naomi swore she barely knew. The same Delia who brought Naomi soup when she was sick and looked at me too long when she thought I wasn't watching. I sat in stillness, not shock, not fury. Something quieter. A kind of hollow recognition I wasn't crazy. I was right. That thought lit something deep inside me. Something ancient and woman-shaped and done being ignored. I didn't cry. I didn't throw the tablet or call her or scream or ask why. I just packed a small bag with 2 days worth of. Closed my laptop, a charger, and my favorite oversized sweater, the one with thumb holes she used to borrow. I didn't leave a note. I drove to my office, parked in the underground garage, and walked into the building like it was a place of worship. My corner office was cold and quiet. I curled up on the floor beside my desk, wrapped in my sweater, the hum of servers around me like static lullabies. I slept that night under fluorescent lights, and I didn't miss her. Not even once. In the morning, I made coffee in the office kitchen, ignored Naomi's texts, and opened a new blank document on my laptop. I hadn't journaled in years, but that day, the words spilled out like a wound draining itself. I am not crazy. She is. She lies in lowercase. She loves in fragments. She rewrites truth in watercolor, so no one can tell when it bleeds. I wrote until my hands cramped. Pages, maybe 20. I didn't write to remember. I wrote to see. I listed all the moments I'd made myself small to avoid her anger. All the times I blamed myself for her absence. All the friends I lost because she made them uncomfortable. All the questions I swallowed because asking would mean knowing. I wrote it all down. That night, I read my own words back like scripture, and I began to believe me. The next day, I returned to the apartment briefly. While she was out, it still smelled like her shampoo and cinnamon tea. I walked through the rooms like a ghost. She had rearranged my books. One of my sweaters was balled up in a laundry basket. She always ruined the sleeves. I looked around for signs of Delia, absurdly, as if betrayal had a scent, a trail, but the only clue I found was a new set of wine glasses in the cabinet. We hadn't bought anything for the apartment together in months. In the bedroom, I opened my drawer and pulled out the notebook she had given me 2 years ago, a leather-bound one with pressed gold edges. I had never used it. That night, I wrote. In it, not rage, not curses, a plan. Not for revenge. For return. Return to myself. It would take more nights sleeping alone before I fully saw it. This life wasn't love anymore. Maybe it never was. Maybe it was hunger and loneliness and projection dressed up as romance. But in that broken space between her lie and my truth, I found the first solid thing I could stand on. Me. Not the woman she loved, the one she forgot, and I wasn't leaving. This time because I was heartbroken. I was leaving because I was finally awake. The sea saved me, or maybe it was the silence. The Airbnb sat on the edge of a weather-beaten cliff, 3 hours from the city and a lifetime away from Naomi. It was owned by a woman named Rosa, late 60s. Gentle voice, hands always dusted with flour. She met me at the door with a pot of chamomile tea and a knit blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. She didn't ask why I was alone. She didn't ask why my eyes looked hollow. She just said, stay as long as you need. The tide comes, back when it's ready. I remember nodding, too tired to cry. Too numb to explain that the cottage had 2 rooms. One was full of books, old poetry collections, battered classics, a scattering of journals tucked into shelves like secrets. The other had a bed with a quilt of mismatched patches and a window that opened to the sea. That first night, I lay on, top of the covers, fully clothed, listening to the ocean crash against the rocks like a heartbeat I didn't have to answer to. For the first time in months, I slept out in the morning. I cut my hair, not dramatically. Not like the scenes in movies where a woman breaks down and shaves her head. I just found a pair of scissors in the drawer, stood in front of the bathroom mirror, and started SNIPPING dot. It was uneven, choppy, but it was mine. I stood for a long time. Afterward, staring at the unfamiliar version of myself. Softer jawline, paler skin, eyes older than I remembered. I looked like someone who had survived something. Though I didn't yet know what that meant. Dot. Later that day, I walked down to the shoreline. The wind was fierce, biting through my sweater. The water was ice cold. I stood at the edge and let it soak through my shoes. Then, without thinking, I stepped in. The shock hit like lightning. Every nerve lit up. I gasped and waded deeper until the water hugged my waist. There was no symbolism to it, no grand metaphor. I just wanted to feel something that wasn't confusion or grief, and I did. When I came back up to the cottage, shivering and breathless, Rosa was waiting with a towel and a soft smile. "You'll sleep well tonight," she said. Dot. She was right. Dot. The days passed without shape. I didn't count them. That felt like something Naomi would do, measure time by milestones, check-ins, deadlines. Here, there was only morning and night, wind and stillness. I read poetry, Adrienne Rich, Sylvia Plath, Ruby Kaur, women who bled truth in verse and never asked for forgiveness. I started writing again, not just journal entries, but fragments of things I didn't yet understand, memories, dialogues, sentences like, "I became so good at loving you." I forgot how to hold myself. Dot. One afternoon, I pulled a tattered book from the shelf and a photo fell out. Dot. It was a girl me, college-aged, in a library, grinning, arms wrapped around a stack of books. Dot. I stared at the image for a long time. Her face was fuller, her smile unburdened. She didn't know how to doubt herself yet. She hadn't met Naomi. She hadn't learned how to disappear. I pressed the photo to my chest and whispered, "I'm sorry." And then softer, "But I think I'm coming back." It wasn't all healing. Some nights I woke with my chest aching, gasping for a name I no longer wanted to say. Sometimes I heard Naomi's voice in the crash of the waves, telling me I was too sensitive, too controlling, too cold. Other nights I missed her in strange ways, her terrible singing, the way she danced while brushing her teeth, the way she once cried watching a dog reunion video. Grief is never clean. Even when you know someone was poison, you mourn the moments. They tasted like honey. Dot. But each day, the weight lifted. Dot. I emailed an old friend from MIT, someone Naomi never liked. We drifted mostly because Naomi said she was competitive and boring. But when I wrote, she replied within the hour. "I've been waiting for this day," she wrote. And she offered me a freelance contract, remote work. Low pressure, high respect. I said yes. I bought a gold necklace the following week. Simple, thin chain, tiny min pendant. Dot. It wasn't expensive. But I didn't ask anyone's opinion, didn't seek anyone's approval, didn't wait for someone to say I deserved it. I just wore it. And somehow that felt like an act of reclamation. One evening, Rosa joined me on the porch. We watched the sunset burn the sky into embers. She said, "You don't talk much. It's okay. But I want you to know you're not the first woman who came here after forgetting her own name." I swallowed. I didn't forget, I said quietly. I just gave it away, bit by bit. She nodded. "Then maybe now," she said, pouring us both tea. "It's time to take it back." I stared into the ocean that night, wondering how long I had let someone else narrate my life. How long I had edited myself to be more tolerable, more convenient. A highlight reel of affection without boundaries, and I made a promise, not of revenge, not of confrontation, but of return dot to that girl in the photo, to the woman in the mirror, to the one who was learning at last that love without self-respect is just slow erosion. I wasn't healed yet, that I was awake. And I was still here. Healing made space. And into that space, truth began to bloom. Not the kind of truth Naomi offered in tearful performances or poetic apologies. No, this was colder, older, traced in bank statements and METATA taught. It started with a journal. I'd packed it hastily before leaving the blue moleskin I used for sketching out design projects. Daily to-do lists, grocery scribbles. It had Naomi's name in the margins too many times. At first it stung, but then one entry caught my eye. Naomi said we should use my login for the vendor payment, said it was faster. Just for this time, the phrase came up again and again. Always tied to money, to shared passwords, to quick favors. So I dug Dot, I opened our old shared laptop, still logged into my cloud. I searched keywords, invoice, transfer, tax, loan. I cross-referenced emails with the bank's notification history. I made a spreadsheet. Naomi always teased me for being obsessive. Now it felt like armor. By the end of the week, I had a timeline. And by the end of the month, I had something terrifying. Naomi hadn't just been careless. She had been calculating. There were transfers from our joint business account amounts, just small enough not to trigger alerts. Vendor payments that never reached vendors. A tax document filed with my name on it, but a different email domain. I blamed myself for being inattentive. But the truth was, she'd made sure I trusted her before she started hiding things. It wasn't just emotional betrayal. It was financial abuse. I met with a lawyer, quietly, in the city 2 hours away. No one knew. Not even Rosa. The lawyer was sharp, soft-spoken, and relentless. She looked through my notes, nodded with a kind of grim familiarity, and said, "This happens more than you think, especially in relationships where trust is used as a smokescreen." I asked if I could press charges. She said yes, but with care. We needed more evidence, bank statements, authentication logs, proof that I hadn't signed off on the tax filing. I said I would get it. Because now I wanted truth more than I wanted vengeance. I wasn't interested in torching Naomi's life. I was interested in reclaiming mine. I also found a therapist, not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to understand why I let myself fall in the first place. Her name was Miriam. She had kind eyes and an uncanny way of finishing my sentences. In our second session, I told her about the perfume bottle. About how I stayed even when I knew. She didn't look shocked or disappointed. She just asked, "Did you ever learn what gaslighting looked like growing up?" I froze. She waited. And something deep inside me cracked, not painfully, but like a window finally opening, because it was never just Naomi. It was every time someone said, "You're too sensitive." Every time I apologized first. Every time. I doubted my own intuition because someone smiled when they lead. Miriam helped me name it. Gaslighting, narcissistic manipulation, financial control, fawn response. We wrote those words down together. She said, "Naming things is power. Silence is what keeps it alive." That night, I opened a new blog. Anonymous, bare bones design. Just white background and serif text. I called it After the Fire. The first post was just a letter to myself. You weren't too trusting. You were groomed to believe that love meant sacrifice, that selflessness meant value, that doubt meant failure. It doesn't anymore. You're allowed to name what hurt you. You're allowed to rebuild in truth. I didn't expect anyone to read it, but they did, and then they shared it. Within a week, I had 20 emails, all women, all stories that started with, "I thought I was the only one," Some had lost money. Some had lost years. Some had just left. Some were still there. I replied to every one of them. I didn't offer advice, just presence. Just, I believe you. And in doing that, something in me shifted. I wasn't the woman who cried over a perfume bottle anymore. I was the woman who survived the fire and started mapping the wreckage dot in my old journals. I began seeing Naomi differently. Not as a storm, not even as a villain, but as a pattern. She loved people who needed saving, or thought they did. She mirrored their values until she gained their trust. She made them feel chosen, then made them question whether they deserved it. It wasn't passion. It was control dressed up in charisma. Naomi didn't break me. She built a blueprint for my fall, and I helped draft it. But now, I was redrawing it with legal counsel, with therapy, with my name signed under consent, not coercion. One evening, Rosa left a stack of mail outside my door. Among it was a manila envelope from my bank. Inside, confirmation that Naomi had taken out a business loan using my digital credentials. Forged approval. We had our proof. I sat at the edge of the bed, envelope in hand, and exhaled. Not relief, something deeper. A knowing. I hadn't been overreacting. I hadn't been dramatic. I had been gaslit, stolen from, manipulated, but not anymore. The next blog post was titled, "The Truth is Paperwork." I wrote, "Healing is emotional, but justice is procedural." You don't have to burn everything down. Sometimes all you have to do is bring receipts. The post went viral. I turned off comments after a day because it wasn't about applause. It was about clarity. Naomi texted once, just once, a short message. "Hope you're okay. I miss your steadiness." I didn't reply because I finally understood. She missed what I gave her, not who I was. That night, I took the photo of my younger self and taped it to the bathroom mirror. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, then at me. And I whispered, "We're okay now." I returned to the city, not as the woman Naomi broke, but as the storm she never saw coming. Black heels, clean lines, hair cropped sharp. The gold necklace glinted just above my collarbone, the one I bought by the sea with no one's permission, but my own. I didn't come for revenge. I came for the truth. And today, Naomi would finally hear it. Our old studio, the one I helped build from the bones of a forgotten warehouse, was hosting its annual gala. The theme this year? Independent. Women in design. The irony didn't make me laugh. It made me steady. Naomi had sent me the invite months ago, probably out of guilt. Probably never expecting me to show. I RSVP'd through my lawyer. The same morning, Naomi was served with a lawsuit, financial fraud, identity theft, breach of partnership. I didn't need to see her face when she read it. I would see it soon enough. The studio gleamed under string lights and curated florals. The same wood floors I once mopped after all-nighters. The same open layout I helped sketch on napkins and coffee receipts. People glanced my way as I entered, some unsure, some intrigued. My name had circulated quietly through the industry grapevine, but Naomi hadn't said much. Of course she hadn't until tonight. She stood near the bar, surrounded by donors and interns. Her dress was designer, her smile strained, and when she turned and saw me, her face dropped. Just for a second, then she smiled, the kind of smile I used to fall for, the one that said, "See, let's just pretend," but tonight I didn't pretend. Walked past her like she was no more than a shadow. Later, during the scheduled thank you speeches, Naomi stepped on stage. Her voice was velvet. Her words carefully crafted. She spoke of grit, growth, feminism, all the things she marketed so well. I stood at the back, fingers brushing the small envelope in my clutch, the one with my final motion filing. She didn't know I'd escalated. The suit to include damages. Let her finish. Let her play her last card. Then it was my turn. The host called my name. Naomi's head jerked toward me, confusion sliding into panic, but I didn't stop walking. I took the mic with a steady hand, and then I told a story. I didn't name names. I didn't point fingers. I told a story about a woman who had once loved someone deeply, who had believed in partnership and shared dreams, who had poured her name, her work, her credit, her soul into something she thought was real. And how piece by piece she was erased until she wasn't, until she remembered who she was. I looked out over the crowd, designers, clients, young women with notebooks and hope. I sighed. To every woman here, love should never cost your name, your credit, or your soul. Silence, not the stunned kind. The kind that lands, then applause. Not thunderous, not theatrical. Just real. I stepped off the stage and didn't look back. Not at Naomi. Not at the past. The lawsuit proceeded. Efficiently, the money returned. Not all of it, but enough. The judge acknowledged the breach. The industry took notice. More than that. After the fire exploded, publishers reached out. Women began hosting support circles under its name. I wasn't just a survivor. I had become a blueprint. Months later, I stood on a new stage. At a bookstore by the sea. My seat, I held my first book. In hand, designing myself. After the fire, the room was packed. But I didn't scan for Naomi. I knew she wasn't there. And for the first time, it didn't matter. I didn't need her to hear me. I'd already said everything I needed to say. As I read the last paragraph aloud, I looked up. There, in the back, Rosa stood by the doorway, hands clasped, smiling, and beside her, a college girl I didn't know, holding a copy of my book to her chest like it was a lifeline. That moment was mine. Not Naomi's, not ours. Mine.